Rams made a huge move over the past few weeks that has changed the landscape of the NFL and catapulted them into championship contention. I understand that I am kind of late to it, but I am bringing a different perspective. As you see in the title, this will be a three-part series. One for the Rams, one for the Lions, and how the Matt Stafford trade affects the rest of the NFL. Hey YouTube, welcome to the Athletic Nerd. My name is Tyler, and let's get right into it. And enjoy! Start off, I do have to give the trade grades, where I give the Rams a B- on it. Now, I do understand this may seem controversial to some people, since even just like the few people that do watch my videos, which I do appreciate, because most sports fans, or NFL fans for that matter, are on either end of the spectrum. Some think it's crazy since the Rams are giving up a lot of picks, and Matt Stafford just isn't good enough to cost that much. And others think that the picks are an issue because Matt Stafford is just that elite of a quarterback and basically guarantees the Rams a Super Bowl appearance. I'm in the middle, hence the grade that I did give. I like to trade more and more as I think about it, as I do believe Matt Stafford is clearly a top 10 quarterback and does help the Rams offense a lot to go along with that defense. But there's just too much risk involved for me to give any higher of a grade, since there are other holes on this team and does limit the team in future years. Now, just to go over the roster, like I said, for quarterback, not too much to say here. Matt Stafford is like 8 to 12 ranked quarterback, so like I said, top 10, especially in the Sean McVay system with the weapons that they do have, which is a huge upgrade over what Goff was, which will help the offense a lot. I am worried about his health a little bit, since the Lions don't have a great offensive line, and Matt Stafford has been pretty banged up over the years. He's also 32, 33 years old, so he may regress a little bit, which may not show as much this year because he could regress in skill, but with the surrounding that he has around him, it won't show too much. Now, just overall roster flexibility, this trade and recent moves that they have made, such as the Jalen Ramsey trade, have handicapped them a lot. They are projected over the cap at the moment and will have to restructure some contracts and probably cut some guys. Even then, key contributors from last season, like their safety John Johnson III, who I did mention in my divisional round preview, and people like Leonard Floyd, who was a really good contributor on the defensive line, will be leaving this offseason. This happens all the time, though, happens to a lot of teams. But the way teams usually combat this is by replacing those contributors with younger, cheaper options in the draft. But like you probably know, the Rams also don't have draft picks. So the roster they have now is basically the roster they will have for the next 2 years, unless they can hit on a lot of their later round draft picks, or find some really cheap options to fill in. Now, running back, they're actually pretty good here, like similar to quarterback, not too much to say. Cam Akers really showed a lot as a rookie, especially to later in the season, and he could be the guy for at least his rookie contract. And They could use some more depth here, but may not be a position they really address this offseason. At wide receiver, I do think they could use another guy here. If they could convince like a veteran that can contribute to come on the minimum, or draft somebody in like the 4th round or later, so it would be very good for this team, because they do have good guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, and they did draft Van Jefferson last year, who can fill a role. But like if they need like a specialist to fill a certain role, they need another guy, even just for depth. Now the tight end is a little bit of a question mark, especially since that the Rams like using multiple tight end sets, which may have been for Jared Goff personally to help him out, so they might use it less this season. But it does seem to be part of the Sean McVay offense, and they will be losing Gerald Everett, which does hurt, like I said. But they did draft. They do also have Bryson Hopkins, a guy going into his 2nd year, who probably get a larger role this season. He was one of the higher-rated tight end prospects going into last year's NFL draft. Now, going on to the offensive line. This is a position they need to address, since Austin Blythe, starting interior offensive lineman for them, he is an impending free agent and is probably on the way out just like a lot of the other guys. The rest of the offensive line is solid. It could use work anyway to be an upgrade, but it is kind of hard to expect that. But even still, they do need to address it because Andrew Whitworth, who did show some regression last season and a little bit the year before, he is 38 years old. And every offseason for like the past 2-3 years, people have been holding their breath waiting to see if he retires. And it is likely coming soon. They already have a hole in the interior offensive line, and they could try to fill it with a guy like Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma, though they might have to trade up a little bit since he is expected to go in mid to early second round. They could also look at a guy like Josh Myers out of Ohio State, who will be a good option here as well, and the center out of Alabama. I forgot his name. Onto the defensive line, they did have one of the best units last season and can expect a very good one this season. As you probably already know, they have Aaron Donald, so it won't make a difference. They're going to be good regardless. And Sebastian Joseph Day, he does provide some optimism. He was very good last year, and he is very young. But Michael Brockers did regress some, and it is hard to expect him to bounce back given his age. Though I do think he might be a little better next season since he was coming off an injury. The main reason why I expect this position group to decline is since the outside linebackers is very suspect. And Leonard Floyd, as I said before, who was very great for them last season, is an impending free agent as well and will likely leave this offseason for a large payday. Samson Ebukam, their other outside linebacker, is also a free agent. Terrell Lewis did have flashes last season and could fill in one of those spots decently, but the other edge will be very weak, and they might have to find a way to add to it this offseason, but it is hard to expect that. Another weakness for this team is inside linebacker. They never replaced Corey Littleton after he went to Las Vegas last season, and the guys they have now haven't played that well don't look like they could be short-term or long-term options, but it is all they have. They should try to address it with a draft pick this year, or somehow get a veteran close to the minimum, or some other way since some NFL rules are kind of weird. They could look at a linebacker like Chaz Surratt out of UNC. He's very unpolished though, so I'm not sure he will be able to contribute as soon as next season and be adequate, but like in the future, he could be a good option. They really need somebody that can cover, but this draft doesn't have somebody that can clearly do too much of that. They could try to look at a bigger safety like Hamza Nasir-El-Dean, but he has been described as stiff by some. He could probably be like a 2-for-1 type of pick since he could provide more depth at safety and cover tight ends on third down. The secondary is another place where they can expect to lose some guys, where they did have one of the best groups in the league last season behind the best cornerback in football, in my opinion, named Jalen Ramsey. And they did have a breakout star in Darius Williams, but he is a restricted free agent, and he may get outside of the Rams' price range depending on his market, so he could be on the way out. They will also be losing John Johnson III, whose parents are just so incredible at naming him, just to say. But he is one of the better safeties in the NFL, and he will be a big loss most likely. Now, they do have Taylor Rapp, who a lot of people were high on when he was coming out of college. He could be an adequate replacement, but he probably won't be able to fill those shoes to the point that John Johnson III did. So like I said, they could look at a guy like Hamza Nasir-El-Dean, who could provide depth at both safety and be a linebacker in third down situations to cover tight ends. So just an overall recap of how I feel about this team. Matt Stafford increases their chance of a Super Bowl tremendously. I do have them they might be even my favorite to get out of the NFC next season. But the Rams do still have a lot of issues that will only get worse from key departures on both the offense and defensive side of the ball. Another departure I did not discuss was defensive coordinator Brandon Staley, who did get a head coaching job, and he was one of the best coordinators in the league. So they may be able to find another guy that can be good enough, but it's kind of hard to replace that good of a coach sometimes. The way I think that they should address their positions of need, given their lack of cap space and their lack of draft picks, would be maybe look in the draft to get a linebacker and an offensive lineman in the 2nd and 3rd round. Then add another defensive back in the 4th round. Then add a wide receiver in the 6th round. And then if they have like another position need, maybe another wide receiver, like a gadget player type in the 7th round, then they need to do them. But overall, the roster isn't too bad. Every NFL roster always has holes, and they're just like no other. But it will be interesting to see in the future. Now that is the end of the video. I hope you liked it and enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video. And if you're a first-time viewer, then subscribe. I will be making videos a lot. If you have any video ideas, anything you want to take away from this video, anything you want to tell me, please comment it. Since it would be greatly appreciated, just so I can understand what the audience wants and what the audience thinks of these videos. If you are a Rams fan or just a sports fan, you can hit any of the links in the description that I do put out for apparel. So you could get like a Rams jersey, or you could even just click off and buy something else. It'll be greatly appreciated. And have a great day.